The day my parents handed my sister a $1 million check and threw me out of the family home, I thought I had lost everything. 3 years later, I watched her entire empire collapse from the front row, and for the first time in my life, nobody blamed me for what happened. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 34 years old, and if you had met me 5 years ago, you would have thought I had a normal family. We smiled in photos, celebrated birthdays together, and posted holiday pictures online. Behind closed doors, though, my parents had already decided one painful truth: my younger sister, Vanessa, was the future of our family, and I was simply an inconvenience. Vanessa had always known how to charm people. She could walk into a room, tell a few funny stories, and everyone adored her. I was different. Quiet. Careful. I worked as an accountant for a mid-sized construction company and believed success came from patience instead of attention. My parents called me boring. They called Vanessa brilliant. Whenever she failed, they rescued her. Whenever I succeeded, they acted like it was expected. My husband, Ryan, noticed it long before I admitted it. "They don't love you less," he once said gently. "They just refuse to see you." At the time, I defended them. "They're still my parents." Ryan sighed. "I hope one day they prove me wrong." Instead, they proved him right. Everything changed after my grandfather passed away. He had spent 40 years building a successful chain of neighborhood grocery stores. Before he died, he sold the company, and after taxes, nearly $2 million remained. My parents inherited the money. For weeks they talked about investing in the family's future. I honestly believed they meant both daughters. Then one Saturday evening, they invited everyone to dinner. Vanessa arrived wearing designer clothes and talking excitedly about a business idea. "I want to build a luxury skincare brand," she announced. Mom practically clapped. "It's exactly what the market needs." Dad looked at me. "What do you think?" I answered honestly. "The beauty industry is competitive. If she's serious, she should start small and test demand first." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "You always think too small." Dad frowned. "That's why you'll never become wealthy." I stayed quiet. Then Dad stood and carried a small silver briefcase into the dining room. He opened it. Inside was a cashier's check. $1 million. Mom smiled proudly. "We've decided to fund Vanessa's dream." Everyone applauded. I forced myself to smile. Then I asked the obvious question. "What about the rest of the inheritance?" Dad looked irritated. "We're keeping some for retirement." "And me?" Silence. Mom folded her hands. "You have a stable job. You don't need help." I swallowed. "I wasn't asking for $1 million. I'm asking if your daughters matter equally." Vanessa laughed. "Oh, Emily. Not everything has to be divided evenly." Dad nodded. "Exactly." I looked at him in disbelief. "So your answer is no?" He didn't even hesitate. "Our money should go where it creates the biggest return." Those words hurt more than I expected. Not because of the money. Because he was talking about his children like investments. Ryan quietly reached for my hand. "Let's go." Before we reached the front door, Mom stopped us. "If you're going to be jealous, don't come back until you can be happy for your sister." I stared at her. I've spent my whole life being happy for her. I just hoped, once, you'd be happy for me. Dad pointed toward the door. "If you can't support this family, you don't belong in this house." Those words echoed in my mind as Ryan and I walked into the cold night. Neither of us spoke during the drive home. Finally, Ryan broke the silence. "They threw you out." I nodded. They really did. The following months were painful. Family birthdays happened without invitations. Holiday dinners continued without us. Whenever relatives asked why I wasn't there, Mom told everyone I was too bitter to support my sister. No one asked for my side. Meanwhile, Vanessa's skincare company exploded across social media. Influencers promoted her products. Celebrities posted photos. Magazine interviews called her the self-made entrepreneur. Every time I heard those words, I wanted to laugh. Self-made. Built with $1 million from our parents. Ryan would remind me. You don't need to correct everyone. The truth has a way of catching up. I wasn't so sure. While Vanessa appeared everywhere online, Ryan and I quietly kept working. One evening my manager called me into his office. I've noticed something. What? You've been solving problems nobody else even notices. I smiled. I just do my job. He shook his head. No. You understand businesses. 6 months later, he promoted me to financial operations director. It doubled my salary. More importantly, it introduced me to owners of growing companies who needed someone they could trust. Within another year, I left my job and started my own financial consulting firm. It wasn't glamorous. I worked 12-hour days. Sometimes 16. Ryan helped every evening after finishing his own job. We built everything from scratch. No family money. No investors. Just long nights, spreadsheets, coffee, and faith. Slowly, clients multiplied. Then something unexpected happened. One of Vanessa's former suppliers contacted me. He wanted advice about recovering unpaid invoices. I frowned. Unpaid? He nodded. They owe us almost $300,000. I felt a knot form in my stomach. That wasn't public information. I didn't ask questions. Confidentiality mattered too much. But over the next few months, more suppliers quietly appeared. Each one told a similar story. Late payments. Broken promises. Cash flow problems. Still, Vanessa continued posting luxury vacations, expensive cars, and glamorous product launches. Ryan looked at one of her online videos and quietly said, either she's hiding something, or she's standing on very thin ice. I had no idea just how thin that ice really was. Then one rainy Tuesday morning, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my father's name. We hadn't spoken in almost 2 years. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. His voice didn't sound proud anymore. It sounded terrified. Emily. I need your help. And the words he said next made me realize that the $1 million my parents believed would build my sister's empire had become the very thing that was about to destroy it. I stayed silent for several seconds. My father almost never asked anyone for help. Hearing fear in his voice felt unreal. What happened? I finally asked. He took a slow breath. Vanessa's company is in serious trouble. I thought business was booming. So did we. His voice cracked. The banks froze several accounts this morning. I closed my eyes. What do you need from me? I need you to meet with us. Ryan looked at me from across the room. He already knew what I was thinking. You don't owe them anything, he whispered. He was right. But I also knew I would never have peace if I spent the rest of my life wondering what had happened. The next afternoon, I walked into my parents' house for the first time in almost 2 years. It felt strangely unfamiliar. The expensive decorations were gone. Several paintings had disappeared from the walls. Mom looked exhausted. Vanessa sat at the dining table, staring at a laptop with red, swollen eyes. Nobody smiled. Dad spoke first. We made mistakes. I didn't answer. Vanessa finally looked up. The company is almost out of money. I frowned. What happened? She hesitated. I kept trying to grow faster. New warehouses. New offices. Celebrity marketing. I thought bigger always meant better. I quietly asked. Did anyone tell you to slow down? She couldn't meet my eyes. You did. 3 years earlier. At that family dinner. The warning they had mocked. Mom suddenly burst into tears. We believed she couldn't fail. Dad lowered his head. We believed you were afraid of success. I felt something break inside me. Not anger. Just sadness. So you threw me away. Nobody argued. Because they couldn't. Dad slid several financial statements across the table. I don't understand any of this. I looked through the reports. Within minutes, I saw the real problem. The company wasn't failing because the products were bad. Sales were actually strong. It was drowning under reckless expansion and enormous debt. They had borrowed against future profits that never arrived. I looked at Vanessa. Who approved all these loans? She whispered. I did. Without experienced financial advisors? She nodded. The room fell silent. Finally, Dad asked, "Can you save the company?" I answered honestly. Maybe. Hope appeared on everyone's faces. Then I continued. But only if everyone tells the truth. The next few weeks were brutal. I agreed to work only as an independent consultant. No ownership. No family favors. Everything would be documented professionally. I immediately shut down 3 unprofitable divisions. Canceled luxury sponsorships. Sold unnecessary office space. Negotiated payment plans with suppliers. Many employees kept their jobs because we acted quickly. Others couldn't be saved. Every decision hurt. Vanessa cried after almost every meeting. One evening she quietly asked, "How do you make these choices?" I looked at her. By thinking about the business. Not my pride. She nodded without speaking. For a while, it seemed like things might actually recover. Then the biggest twist arrived. During a routine audit, I discovered something that made my stomach drop. Someone had secretly taken millions in unauthorized distributions from the company. At first everyone assumed it was fraud by an employee. It wasn't. Every transfer had been legally approved. By Vanessa herself. She stared at the paperwork. I forgot about those. You forgot? She started crying. I kept moving money between companies. My financial advisor said it was normal. Who? She gave me his name. I immediately recognized it. He'd already been investigated years earlier for unethical investment practices. Did you ever verify anything he told you? She slowly shook her head. She had trusted him because he made her feel important. Within days he disappeared. Authorities later confirmed he had manipulated several wealthy clients into disastrous financial decisions while collecting enormous consulting fees. Vanessa wasn't his only victim. But she was one of the biggest. News spread quickly. Local newspapers covered the company's financial collapse. Social media turned against her almost overnight. The same influencers who once praised her suddenly deleted old posts. People who had called her a genius pretended they'd never known her. Then came the annual Chamber of Commerce Business Awards. 3 years earlier, Vanessa had stood on that very stage accepting an award for Entrepreneur of the Year. This year, she was scheduled to speak about rebuilding after failure. The ballroom was packed. Business owners. Reporters. Investors. My parents sat in the front row. So did Ryan. Vanessa walked to the microphone. Her hands trembled. She looked across the audience. Then she surprised everyone. I was supposed to talk about resilience tonight. She paused. But that's not the truth. She looked directly at me. The truth is, I built a company with $1 million head start. I believed money made me talented. I believed praise meant I was always right. She took a deep breath. I ignored the one person who warned me. The audience became completely silent. My sister. Hundreds of people turned toward me. Vanessa continued. My parents gave me everything. They gave her nothing. I spent years believing I deserved more. I didn't. Tears rolled down her face. When my company started collapsing, the person who worked the hardest to save it was the sister I had humiliated. I wasn't expecting any of it. Neither were my parents. Dad slowly stood. Then Mom. In front of everyone. Dad's voice shook. We failed both of our daughters. We spoiled one. We abandoned the other. He turned toward me. I'm sorry. I chose favoritism over fairness. And I almost lost my oldest daughter forever. The room was silent. No applause. No whispers. Just honesty. For the first time. Several months later, the company survived, but barely. It wasn't an empire anymore. It became a much smaller business focused on a handful of successful products. Vanessa remained the owner, but she finally surrounded herself with experienced people instead of people who simply agreed with her. As for me, my consulting firm kept growing. Ironically, many businesses hired me after seeing how I handled Vanessa's crisis. They didn't want someone who chased headlines. They wanted someone who prevented disasters. One Sunday afternoon, my parents came to my office. Not because they needed money. Not because they wanted advice. Dad quietly placed a folder on my desk. Inside was a revised estate plan. Every remaining family asset would now be divided equally. Mom looked at me. We can't erase what we did. But we can stop repeating it. I looked at the documents. Then I closed the folder. I appreciate this. But what I wanted wasn't money. Dad nodded slowly. I know. I wanted parents who believed in me. Mom started crying again. We're trying to become those parents. It wasn't a perfect ending. Trust doesn't return overnight. Some scars never completely disappear. But something did change. They stopped comparing us. They stopped treating love like an investment. And Vanessa finally understood something money had hidden from her for years. $1 million can build a company. It can't build wisdom. It can't build character. And it certainly can't buy the respect that's earned through years of quiet, honest work. 3 years earlier, my parents gave my sister $1 million and threw me out of their lives. They thought they were choosing the daughter with the brighter future. In the end, the empire they built on favoritism collapsed under its own weight. The daughter they left with nothing turned out to be the only one who knew how to rebuild from the ground up.